apparently George Takei thinks that those who have not gotten vaccinations should be punished for their bad ways, and TheQuartering is going to have a lot of fun ridiculing liberals and progressives, and I assume communists, because he's always talking about the evil of communists, for wanting to coerce us all. But him being the good libertarian man that he is, he's going to have fun with all these people. So I'm going to be careful. We're going to look at a little snippet from earlier in his video and later in his video, just to be a little concise.
The group of people who that is the largest who have willfully decided to not take the poke are actually young are minorities. So George Takei indirectly calling out minorities here. Yes, I know it's a tongue-in-cheek call out, but if you look at the start of July, the poke rate was 15% lower for black folks than for white people in the United States. And the rate for Hispanic people is 3% lower than that. Asian Americans have maintained an even higher rate than white Americans, well above 70%. So why does George Takei not like blind myself too, obviously? You know, I 100% believe in science and you know, medical history and you know, taking precautions. And it's funny that like people will gaslight. Like if you just say like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have a law requiring a medical procedure thing, you know, and they'll say, what are you, anti-vax? No, of course not. Well, why would you say something so crazy? I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying maybe we shouldn't be, you know, worried about infringing on people's personal liberties so easily. Maybe we should just think about this a little bit. What? You should be banned from the internet for having such. And again, I want to be very clear. I have I would guess that, you know, at least half of my viewers, maybe more, have received the poke. And fine. Like, seriously, I'm not understand this. I don't care. I don't, if you wanted to protect yourself or you had to do it to go back to work or whatever, like seriously, I don't care. But it's people like this that are insane. This is a really bad take. So many of the unpoked are people who've had a bad history with the American government, particularly blacks and immigrants. Should we also not prioritize people who get cancer from SIGs?
It may shock people, but I actually agree mostly with what TheQuartering is saying. I do think with the vaccination, you should make your own choice. Because, again, there are people quite independent of this controversy. Let's say you're just a religious person, whether Christian or Muslim, and for whatever reason you don't want to get vaccinated. You shouldn't be judged by that. It just could be your religious belief. You don't want to get vaccinated. I don't judge somebody based on that. So people are getting vaccinated for good reasons. They're getting vaccinated for bad reasons. People are not doing vaccinations for good reasons and for bad reasons. It's really, really hard to tell. So I do think the libertarian approach is the wise one. Let people make their own decisions. On the other hand, there are people who do want vaccinations and don't want to get infected. So I think let's just try to find an approach which minimizes coercion but is fair to both sides. But that's not what TheQuartering is doing. He's just having a lot of fun with George Takei, and he had this awful tweet where he's like, well, I guess George Takei doesn't love the black people because the black people, they're not getting vaccinated at all. So George Takei, folks, he hates the black people. That's not in the tweet, and he's just making up garbage. But he does have a point that George Takei, he does have, I think, not a very good position, and it's not based on science. It is based on a very willful ignorance and him wanting to coerce people to do something. So I agree with him that there is a very disturbing kind of fascistic logic to how he's justifying punishing those who don't get vaccinations. I do agree with him. There is something disturbing with what the tweet is saying. And yes, it may infect minority groups, although I think it's really fascinating that he concentrates on the, quote, black people. There are other people here, right? Native Americans have suffered greatly during this crisis. Asian Americans have suffered. There are other groups besides, quote, the black people and even Hispanic people. There are a lot of different minority groups in America. I also find it amusing in a lot of his videos. TheQuartering is always like, guys, I don't see race. I don't see black and white. Those things don't exist. I'm TheQuartering. But then when it's time to make the liberals look bad or hypocritical, suddenly minority groups exist. And guess what? Racial inequality exists too. It's like, guys, I'm TheQuartering, and I don't believe in race. But hey, guess what? There's racial inequality here. Mr. K is being very insensitive to that. Yeah, whatever. So there's no consistency to him at all. And I also agree that these people who are attacking Takei are just bringing in this complete illogical nonsense. Of course, if you're obese, you should be judged on that. That's just obvious. Like, obviously, if you're doing medicine and you say to somebody, well, I think you made bad healthcare choices and maybe we should take that into account. No, you have a right to obesity. In fact, we should encourage obesity. In fact, we should encourage obesity for the non white people too. We should have really, really obese black children and really obese Hispanic children for equality. I mean, there are liberals and progressives who think like this. They're really completely cuckoo. So I agree with him on both counts, but then his own position. I'm the quarter. I just people should make their own decisions. He doesn't really believe that. Over and over again, he's more than willing to sanction state coercion, and he has no problem with even mass violence. So I'm not exactly a believer in his quote, libertarian form of fascism. He's as wicked as the people he's condemning, but he still does have a point that this is a very complicated issue, and we should go very carefully through what is the solution for both sides. And I do agree with him also that just using Star Trek as a symbol for his position is ridiculous. Science fiction is science fiction. If you think the science in Star Trek is real, you're beyond nuts and stupid. There is no real science in Star Trek. Believe me, I've been thoroughly studying this thing, and it's interesting the way they do try to base some things on science, but a lot of stuff is not scientific at all, and trying to make it seem as if Star Trek has taught us the value of science. No, it hasn't, and if it did, then that's a really bad science education. So, I agree with the quartering mostly, but his self-righteous tone is, as always, not warranted. He's as hypocritical as they are. And if he is a libertarian, he has not shown it in the past. He's been very inconsistent on that. But if he's being serious, then I do agree with him. I do think people should be given their own individual choice here. We should just still take measures to try to minimize risk. I don't think that's in contradiction with one another. It'll be tough, but I think we can minimize coercion and try to be fair to both sides on this very, very difficult issue. And that's my take on it.